What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. After Sound here with a special guest coming to you, and that is Darren or Deerambo. I want to welcome you to the channel. Darren, how are you?
I'm doing well, After Sound. Thanks for having me. Again, thanks for sharing your platform with me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for all the folks who are watching, Darren had reached out to me via Discord and just wanted to chat about some ideas he had. And did we spend like an hour on the phone,
Yeah,
just Discord voice chat? You're like,
yeah, I said,
I want to take a couple minutes of your time, and then we just got so into the conversation with a lot of these ideas that I was like, I think it'd be great for you to present it here. So I appreciate you coming on, and we can kind of do this. Well, first, if you want to introduce yourself, how long you've been playing, and all that, and then we can dive right in.
yeah, no problem. So again, my name's Darren. My IGN in game is Deerambo. I've been playing since the airdrop started. So like a lot of players, I think that was the end of June or started July of almost 2 years ago, coming up on a year and a half. So that's when I joined. Unlike most, though, I actually just played the game, played ranked and rented. I didn't buy any assets. I didn't buy really any SPS. I didn't buy any cards. I was still like shaky on this crypto stuff. You know what I mean? I wanted to just test the waters and see where it went. So for the first 6 months, I just played the game. And then after the crypto bull run was over and you could see prices were coming down and chaos got launched, so there was cheap cards back on the market, that's when I jumped in. It was like about a year ago, January and February of last year is when I started to put in big chunks of money. I think the first one was about 2,500. And to this day, I'm not a whale or anything by that. I mean, I probably have about 6,500 invested in Splinterlands. I have a couple nodes. Those are my big investments.
Okay. So when you made your first investment, you said like 2,500. What were you buying? Like what like convinced you? Was it cards? Was it SPS? Was it nodes?
Yeah, so it was definitely Chaos Legion and opportunity to get gold foils for cheap. So immediately I bought, instead of packs, I bought cards. So I immediately bought all the common and rare gold foil and all the epic regular foil, and then worked on the legendaries one by one, slowly.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
So
I want to do that the same with Rift Watchers, but there's just not enough like cards in the market, it seems like, to pick up cheap.
Well, I think
we've only gotten like Rift Watchers.
We've only opened like 1/4 of the packs for Rift Watchers, so there's still quite a bit to go. Now, what league are you playing in if you're doing all gold foils?
So that was pretty much, I sent those ones to my alt, and that one is using Splintermate, and it's in the top 50 in bronze. That's where I keep that one. Yeah, it gets, you know, a decent like 70 chests per season, and it always gets us 10 to 15 chests per day. So that one's doing great, and I like that one. And then my main, I use that one for the guild mostly, and since I'm in the, I play the silver gold foil, and that's where that one is. So when I do the rentals, the ones that I need, I'll play silver, go into gold, and then at the end of the season stretch into diamond and finish diamond 3, diamond 2.
Nice. All right. Yeah, that's kind of where I've been, just kind of stretching into from gold, stretching into diamond. It's rare that I finish in diamond 1. It's usually a struggle, but this first kind of season where the rating changed, or the rating system changed, or rating reset, I should say, I was able to make it a diamond 1 just barely. So now I guess I'm a full diamond player because I'm not dropping in gold anymore.
Yeah, as long as I can continue to make it there. It takes, I think, 2 seasons, right, of like not playing.
Yeah.
To drop back down.
Well, if I don't make it back up to diamond 1, then I will drop back down. But for now, we're doing all right.
Gotcha.
Cool, man. Well, I don't know if you want to jump right in. I know you had several points. So we talked last week. I was fascinated by a lot of them. I thought there were a lot of good points. Cool. There were some that I had some questions on, and we're going to jump back into that today now that I've had a little more chance to sit with them. But yeah, do you mind if I go ahead and just share your screen?
Yeah, go ahead and share the screen. You know, like I told you, I'm not really outspoken in the community. I really stay to myself and just in my guild and stuff. But there was this feeling in me because, you know, the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And I could see that a lot of people were coming up with a new mode. Like that was really catching track. And look, Weirdbeard says he, you know, from a week ago when we talked, Weirdbeard came out, said he's working on it. Yesterday in the town hall, we even had Nate talking about more game modes. So
yeah,
so it's really catching traction, and that's what really scared me the most, is because new game modes are great, but they're usually used when you really need them, when the game is almost dying or the player base is really leaving. And I know we can make the argument that the player base is leaving slowly from Splinterlands now, but is it really, is it the game? Is it the community? Is it the token economics and stuff like that? So to me, I thought the narrative was going down a tangent, down this road that I thought was maybe dangerous, and I just had to speak out. So I reached out to you and a couple other people, and we had the discussion, and you said, let's make a video about it. And I said, for sure, thank you for lending me your platform.
Mm-hmm.
So today, for the people that are watching, I have a topic about ECR, what I think, what we could do for ECR to make the game just more playable, if it's an option. Technically, I'm throwing it out there to see the idea get flushed out and if it's even possible. Because I think if it is possible, that's one of the biggest changes we can make to the game to make it more playable and more enjoyable for people. And then, I wanted to just throw a cautionary tale out to people of, now that we are going to get a game mode, excuse me, I had to rethink myself because I didn't want to sound like a Debbie Downer and just come off with pure salt. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy here is game mode and he just wants to shoot it down right away. So I came up with ideas that, I think if we are going to have a new game mode, I think there has to definitely be elements of crypto behind it and Web3 design. Because initially I couldn't believe that Aggie would let, Weirdbeard or anyone design a Weird 2 element for Splinterlands. But after yesterday's town hall, they seemed like okay with it. Like, yeah, we're kind of cool with this. We're going to go ahead and do it. So, and then from there, lastly, I just have my revamp for ranked. I like to keep myself, like, I don't do puzzles or anything, but I do like theoretical problem solving. So I just sat down, Tails used to talk about it a lot, about ranked, how like there was just arbitrary like ranked rating points, and like you really didn't know what you're like, how many points if you got leveled with someone 75 points below or above you, or 100, like there was too much of a disparity there and just unknown. So I started working on that like a few months ago, just for fun, like, just to keep me busy in my spare time. And so when I talked to you about, the new game modes, I figured since I have my foot in the door, I'll just like throw this out there. Like, hey, I've also thought of like a complete ranked revamp that might involve a pro league and new ways to stop bots from like leveling up and all this other stuff. So again, just thank you for your time after sound and sharing your platform with me. And I hope that the community doesn't take this as me being salty or anything like that. Just me trying to set out like new ideas so the narrative can maybe change from where we're going, or maybe we can just flush out this narrative more and not be so, because I noticed that a lot of community members just throw out ideas. The team doesn't know like which way that idea is going to end in the end. They don't see the light at the tunnel at the light, or excuse me, the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. They just hear this really good idea, and before you know it, they're going with it. And it's kind of like when Weirdbird in Mav chat said he was working on one for 3 months, like that kind of took me by surprise. That kind of scared me too. Like, what kind of game is he developing? Like, is it just a sandbox mode? Does it have crypto elements? Does it have none of that? So that's why I really reached out to you. And again, thank you after sound. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, you came to me with the ECR stuff before the new ECR post was put out this past weekend. So I don't know if that changes much, but I think what you have here about like the ECR toggles, which is definitely still something that is sorely needed, in my opinion.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So the very first one, is if I could ask the team, I didn't get to go to Splinterfest, but if I had, the one question I would have asked them then, because I've had this question since I almost joined, is can we just have an ECR toggle switch? Can we turn it on or off when we like? And I saw people in Mav chat discuss this idea, and they didn't like it because they said, well, then we can play forever, climb rating, and get all the rating goodies, all the rewards for hitting high and ranked. And yeah, that's true. That's initial, but I, what I'm going to bring up in ranked and how I can, how I've thought of it, kind of preventing that. So even though I haven't said that, keep that in mind. But sure, ECR toggle switch, I think that's the number one reason. And why is because players should be able to earn when they want. They should have the option of turning off their ECR and their earnings, right? It grants the players the freedom to play for as long as they want without having to negotiate between time and rewards. And then, my little dad joke there is that it's not free to play, but it will become free to play, like when you like. It's not free to play, but you are now free to play when you like. That's my little dad joke, right? It's not free to play, but you are free to play when you like, whenever
free
you
to
like,
earn when you like. Yeah.
Yeah. And then since our conversation, I thought of this. I would love to poll the community if I could. Would you have joined Splinterlands with this new ECR change in place? Because one of the big things when we were joining 18 months ago is we didn't like that our NFTs, when we purchased them, were capped for the day, right? That was a big thing with Fate and Arenas. We'd go buy a character and he could only play like 22 matches for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big turnoff to people. And then you came to Splinterlands, you're like, yeah, I can buy my cards and I can play for however long. They do have this ECR thing, but it's like the ECR thing was so like intricate and like people didn't get into it that you just felt like you could play. You know what I mean?
I mean, the thing is, you could still play and your ECR is down at 10% and you're still earning something, right? So even if it's not much, even if it's not worth your time, you could still feel like you're playing the game and get something out of it. Whereas with this new system, you don't necessarily have that.
Yeah. So that's why I would love to pull the community, like, because that's how I see the new ECR change. This idea was, before the changes, but even with the change, ECR still operates the same. They just, put a solid number of 50 on it now. But that's like a big difference psychologically to some people. You know what I mean? Because it does put a cap on you for you pay thousands of dollars for these NFTs, and then you can only play them for so much in a day. So, and I think that's the big thing that people are that's really getting under people's skin, is that, I can't play my cards when I want. I can't do this. I can only play for a limited amount, and then when I do play, there's bots and yada, yada, yada. Right. So I think and that's what I feel like people are driving for this new game mode, is because they think that this new game mode is going to be like this holy land of just human players. And like, it's just going to be this fun time of human players playing against each other. But, and again, I really don't know what this game mode would bring. It's one of those scary things. I don't know. I wish Weirdbeard the best of luck in doing it.
Yeah.
But I really think it's a big step for him and like in the Splinterlands in his career, because it's a big project in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So just for context, because, and we talked about this in our conversation, but just for folks who obviously weren't privy to that, what is your fear? Like, if you can help define that for folks, because I think people hear like he's afraid of game modes, but I don't understand, because the community is generally excited about new things. But like you mentioned briefly, new game modes only come around when the main game is about to die. But if you can expand upon that a little bit.
So yeah, anytime there's a drop edge in player base, they look for new ideas, and right away the first idea thrown out by the community is usually a new game mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but we're different. We are a Web3 game. We're based on a blockchain. So initially when I heard you and Darkest Night said, let's do a sandbox. You're like, yeah. Mm-hmm. And your comment was, if I had 1 million people playing a free-to-play, I would love that, because I would get crossover to the blockchain game, right? To play to earn. And I would just question that, if that's true. If we had a free-to-play mode and millions of people are playing it, but we have some low conversion rate, like single digits, are we going to really be happy with that? We burnt all this time and resources, dev time, kind of marketing probably, because I'm sure we're going to have to push it out to people.
Mm-hmm.
And for what? They may come in and then they may leave. You can look at the most popular game right now is probably Marvel Snap for a CCG.
Yeah.
They're losing players. It's only been out for less than a year and they're losing a base. It's one of those things that when it comes to digital card games, it's hard to be relevant for a long, long time. When we talk about card games, we talk about literally the same ones: Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and, honorable mentions to Hearthstone, and Legends of Runeterra.
Mm-hmm.
And those are like the top 5. Other than that, there's been hundreds that have, failed. I've had 100 of them on my phone just to download, because they come out, they look fun to play. You play them for a month and you're done with them. So I would be afraid of that boom and bust period coming to Splinterlands on a Web 2 game.
Interesting.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So, best case scenario, millions of people cross over to play to earn. Worst case scenario, for me anyways, is not no people, no crossover. It's millions of people come to the new free to play and no one crosses over. And then we lose those eyes forever. They'll never come back. They're like, yeah, Splinterlands, I tried it, the free to play mode, whatever, that crypto stuff, you know. That's what my biggest fear is. And you know, also I told you the last conversation, imagine turning on Twitch Splinterlands, going to Twitch, turning on Splinterlands. There's thousands of viewers, and the biggest streamer is there with, you know, hundreds or possibly, you know, 2,000 to 3,000 people. And they say something to the effect that, yeah, guys, don't worry. Just play the sandbox mode. That's all you need to worry about. That crypto stuff, I don't trust it either. Just stay here. Or you don't need to worry about that. Like, that's the worst thing I could like picture, you know, like I don't want that around Splinterland. So
Fair.
That's why I get worried. That's where I'm worried, is that, you know, we actually do see success, but it's in a Web 2 version of the game that never gets to the Web 3 version.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I understand your concerns. I don't know that I necessarily agree with it. I think there's going to be a natural curiosity there, but what I do find valid in your concerns is the boom bust, right? You see that across many games. People come in and then they leave, and then it just becomes irrelevant. And I would like to think that Splinterlands is really just at the beginning of their, you know, innovation and what they're trying to do. So it'd be terrible for people to come in and leave at such an early part of the stage when so much is coming in and feel like they've gotten the experience, even though we're really just in like a beta version of the game right now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how I see it too. We're in a beta version of the game. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the like a new mode after sound? Like, you said you're for it. Are you?
Well,
would you that scenario? Would you be okay with that if a million people came in and we had a low conversion rate?
You know, I mean, I would be. I mean, you've definitely put some thoughts in my head around like, you know, are there significant risks here? But ultimately, like I don't, you know, that saying, there's no such thing as bad press, right? So it's like, I can't imagine what this ecosystem would look like if a million people knew about Splinterlands, because I don't even think in the world right now there's a million people that know or have heard of this game, right? That's just how tiny it is in the grand scheme of things. And so for people to know, for people to have tried, and maybe it's not for them, and that's fine. But I don't know. I'd like to think that even if the conversion rate is low, you'd still get basically the top tier players who'd want to come in, right? And so again, I'm not saying that there wouldn't or couldn't be detrimental effects, but you know, maybe with my rose tinted glasses, I'm looking at it as a net positive ultimately. But when it comes to game modes, you know, the sandbox was only like one of them. I think that
I understand that as well. Yeah.
And trust me, like the team is very much probably in line with where you're at. Maybe not for the same reasons, but you know, they've come out and said that they don't want to devalue assets, right? And so like that's where the fundamental disagreement where I was having with them, where it's just like, well, I mean, I understand that it devalues assets, but it could bring people in. And now you're coming in with actually a different angle, which I appreciate and respect, because it's
to be clear, I am okay with other game modes within Splinterlands, but not card game modes. Do you remember like early computer sales? There'd be like, comes with 10 downloadable games or pre-downloadable games, and it was like 6 versions of Solitaire. Like, I don't want that to happen to Splinterlands. Like, I'm okay with other game modes, but if they're like, you know, Slay the Spire or TFT type, you know, like completely different game modes, I'm actually okay with that. I think that's where we should go when we say new game modes, is totally different types of games using our NFTs. I don't like new game modes that just are card games. Like, that's the whole point. You know what I mean?
One of the ones that I'm excited about will be some kind of 2v2 version. But then again, I don't know what that necessarily looks like from an earnings perspective. But you know, I'll give a shout out to Darkest Night. One of the things that he says that I really think about now with these, like, you know, we own these NFTs, right? The digital collectibles, but we can't use them in any which way compared to like when we own physical Magic cards. So for example, it's just like if I wanted to go play with a friend and create some random type of game, right? Like create some random game mode between me and him. You know, you could do that when you own the cards and could play with them here. Excuse me. Part of it is like, it's not that I want the sandbox for for like to bring in a bunch of new players, but even just the sandbox to like play with these cards just for fun with friends, right?
Yeah.
And part of that could be like, well, let's expand the challenge mode, let's expand the practice mode, right? These could be areas that kind of touch upon your first point here, where it's like, maybe, maybe we do something that's non-earning and non-ranked either, and it's just for people that want to continue playing, practice, like sharpen their skills, like go into a
But
practice or challenge mode.
let's flush that idea out. Where do the cards come from? They would have access to all the cards.
Well, no, it would be the cards that you own.
Oh, okay. So it would be like Darkest Night, creating a set and lending it to friends to play for the night.
Yes, something like that. Or I mean, like if basically right now there's a challenge mode that exists, right? So there's a practice mode and a challenge mode. I believe the practice mode is underutilized because somebody else needs to be wanting to practice too. So it's like ranked, but nobody's
Yeah.
ever in there at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. To queue into someone. Yeah.
Yeah, and with the challenge mode, you can go in and you can tweak certain things like what league you play at, but you can't choose like the rule sets. You can't choose like which cards. Like if you could have a little bit more customization with that. Again, it's not necessarily a new game mode. It's just adding a little bit more to challenges. But I know a lot of people would spend time just challenging one another with like very specific like rule sets just to have fun and try something new. So again, does that count as a new game mode? I'm not sure, but does it keep people playing the game when they're not worried about rating or earnings? Yes, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It's not web 2, it's just people wanting to play with their cards or what they have
Right.
without risking like burning an energy or their rating, right? It's just I love playing the game. I love the meta of the game, and I want to
Yeah.
do it with friends or I want to do it with other people.
I get it. Yeah, I get that. I can see that working actually.
So, and then, I don't know if you consider like tower defense a new game mode, or a new game in and of itself, but I would love to see more things like that. Obviously, it hasn't come out yet, but when it does come out, I would love to see more things like that where you can utilize your cards for different areas of, well, not different areas, but like essentially completely different games.
Yeah, no, I understand. So yeah, no, I got you there. And I would agree that maybe something like that in the game would work. I would just I guess if I had to argue back on that is how valuable would it be? How many people would actually use it? Would it be worth the time? But I can see that working. Yeah, just letting people come in, and if an individual already has the assets to lend or let people use, then yeah, let them do a sandbox mode where they can create. Yeah, I can see that working actually.
And to your point, it's probably not a priority, right? Or probably shouldn't even be a priority. It's like a nice to have from a lot of the hardcore players, and I recognize that since I'm
Yeah,
hardcore, I'm surrounded by a lot of hardcore players. But for the general player base, they probably wouldn't find a lot of utility in that.
yeah, I don't think that mode will bring in hundreds of thousands of new players or anything
Sure.
like that. That might bring in your friends and family or your close friends, but not a large group of people.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
all right, no problem. So yeah, so just the first one, and like again, if I could just ask a question, hey, can ECR have a toggle switch? Can I play when I want, whenever I want? That'd be my main question. If we could get that answered, I would love that. So next, I'm going to jump into my rank revamp because I think that's the most important part. I don't think this is perfect by any means. This is just an outline or like more or less a template. The foundation and just what I think would work. A system similar to this could be put in place. I really want to throw it out there so the community can just discuss it and say, hey, I think these elements might work or these ones won't, or if we tweak it, this would really work, or anything like that is really why I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah.
All right. So first and foremost for rank, this whole little sign saying up here, bot neutral pro player, is how I think the team should think when it comes to redesigning ranked. They say they're bot neutral, but at the same time, they can be pro player. They can put elements into the game that allow the player to make better decisions against bots and just create disparity, in the decision making. Because people, that's the biggest thing they knock us for is being an auto battler, but you make a lot of decisions up until that battle is played. So, there can be big changes to the game or minor changes to the game that make big changes between bot play and pro player, human players. So the very first change I think that would help the rank system is more ranked tiers. More tiers per rank league leads to greater separation between bots and players. The lower tiers would act as a pit for bots. More tiers allow for a more finely tuned reward system per league or / tier. The mid-level tiers would be filled with more casual human players, and it helps create a passive level in the tier below Pro League that would be comprised of mostly human players. So the keyword there is Pro League, right? I would actually put in five tiers, and the very top one, what we call like Gold 1 or Diamond 1, would be called our Pro League. And our Pro League players, I'm going to skip down to Pro League, players will need a minimum of 20 games. So whether you're in whatever tier you start the season in, to start, you're going to need, by playing one splinter, you can play multiple, but essentially you need to play 20 games of a single splinter in order to get out of that rank, to go from rank 5 to rank 4, or tier 4, from tier 5 to tier 4, whatever. You have to play 20 games. And this new system, or at least the system that I think would work the best from what I see when I look at, how bots, work in rank and how human players work, is base it all on your win rate. And that's what people said with the new CR changes, that you're going to have a better win rate to be more, profitable, which is true. But how if win rate actually help us thin the herd of bots and human players? So I'm going to jump back and forth. Sorry, guys.
That's fine. Go for it, man.
So second, the other thing is a 5 splinter ranking system is what I would introduce. So more tiers. Every splinter has its own percentage of games and wins. And then there's a 5 splinter ranking system. So we would add up your best 5 splinters at the end of a season, give you your percentage on that, and that would be your placement and ranked for that season based off your overall win rate, which is a combination of your 5, or there's this option here to add because we have 6 splinters, to submit your 6th splinter to replace your lowest splinter score. So I've given people options to play every single splinter within a season, and the way I thought of this system was just because I think this lends itself to, like I said, help thin the herd between bots and people, but it also helps gamers or players create an identity for themselves. People will spend all day playing just fire because that's their favorite. Yeah. They'll play all death because that's their favorite all day. So, so that's something I thought about when designing this. So,
part of it too is that, like, bots will usually just rent maybe 1 or 2 splinters, play those games, and then not care about the games that they lose. So this actually attacks them on both fronts, where it's just like, well, you're not utilizing all 5 splinters, nor are you having a good win rate because you're giving up those games and playing with, like, starter cards essentially when you don't have the splinters. Yeah.
So, bots, they have horrible win rates. There is one, I think both Xbot and Archmage have good win rates, but you have to have like more than 80% of like the collection. Like you have to have a lot of the cards, and you have to, I don't know.
Well, this wouldn't really be going for those bots that have good collections. I feel like with this, when you say thinning the herd, this is for a lot of those, like, bots that are there to farm, right? That have the minimum amount of investment to try to get the maximum amount of output.
Yeah, primarily yes, because actually I'm okay with bots, right? I use a bot, and bots are great for people that work and you can't play all the time. It's great to run a bot in the background, right? So there is a way, yeah, people will look into this and they say, well, after I get, my 5 splinters and I do it with myself and I get a good win rate and I get up into the top tier, I'll just let my bot play, which is true. But that bot better hold your win rate, because, another element of this is if your win rate drops below the required win rate for percentage, you'll get deranked to the lower tier. So give me a second after.
Yeah, take your time, man. It's a lot of talking, right?
Yeah. And I have no one to talk to, man. That's the worst thing about Splinterlands. You live out in the country. There's no one else into it.
No one else into it? Yeah. Well, we'll get there. You just gotta jump on Discord voice sometimes, I guess.
All right. So, back to this Pro League, I would like to, just kind of air it out for the people and what it would look like. So essentially, again, with this system, I would like to have more ranked tiers. In my head, I picture it as 5 tiers per league. Each splinter would have its own ranking system, and then Pro League would be broken down into something very different. I would actually have Pro League be, initially I had 500 players here, but I changed it to 1,000 just so it could make matchmaking easier for people.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially the Pro League would be the top 1,000 players of any league to get to there. So after you finished your first 5 splinters, and let's say I didn't flush this out because the team could do this on their own, or like I just want to set the foundation. But let's say for bronze, just to give people numbers, you had to have a 55% win rate to get from bronze 5 to bronze 4. That means you would have to win 11 out of 20 games with that first splinter. Seems pretty doable, right? If you're in bronze, winning 11 out of your first 20 with 1 splinter seems doable. That would give you a 55% win rate. So just for an example, let's say that to get out of bronze 4, you had to have a 60% win rate. Mm-hmm. Well, that would mean winning 12 out of the 20 of your next splinter. If you got into bronze 3, it would take 65. That would be 13 out of the 20, right, with your next splinter, and etc. Right, to get your 5th one, and that's 15 out of 20 to get, I think, approximately like a 90% win rate or something like that.
Yeah.
And essentially, when you add them up and average them, I think you come out with like a 67% win rate for that player to get from bronze 5 to bronze 1 into the technical term Pro League for bronze 1. Which I don't think is bad. If a player has a 60-some% win rate in bronze, they should be up there in the top of the league earning.
Sure, yeah.
But they also have to keep that, right? Like, I think one of the things that's not discussed, again, with ranked is matchmaking. We don't know how matchmaking is going. Like, why am I playing against people that are 300 RP below me and so forth,
Yeah.
So this wouldn't, I would also throw matchmaking into this and say that the top 1,000 play with each other. I don't care if you play each other 10 times in a season. That's an act of attrition. You're showing that you're the best player. If I play you
by playing
half
the other best
blue
players.
or if I played half blue or darkest night 10 out of 10 times in a season, we're going to see who's better, right? I'm going to have a better record, or they're going to have a better record, or we're going to break even. And that's what I really think we need to focus here on Splinterlands is the best players. Like you want to focus on making players popular and giving them a spotlight to like shine for themselves, but there's no direction to do that for the Splinterlands community right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why I created the Pro League, is gives people an idea and something to reach for, right? So the top 1,000 players, they would finish out the season. The top 50 players of every season would qualify. I had to put a name, so I called it the Epic Qualifier Tournament. The top 250 players, so in total, I didn't put it in here, but a cycle would be 5 seasons, which would equal 1 epic, right? The top 250 players will receive an NFT to participate in a qualifier tournament. 6 entries can be used by the team for a promo, because technically there would be 256 entries for a qualifier. That would make an even bracket, right?
That'd be cool, yeah.
So we'd start with 1,000 a season. We reward the top 50 at the end of every season. At the end of a rotation, right, 5 seasons, which is 2.5 months, we'd have 250 players that had earned an NFT for this qualifier tournament.
Now, what happens if you've won like in one of the previous epics? What are the previous
person? Yeah,
or just go to the next person.
Yeah, okay. Those are terms and conditions that the team can make up that don't really affect what I'm trying to do, right?
Fair.
Hey, you can come in next week, or you can't, or you can only collect 1, or you can sell it on the second market. They could do all kinds of things, right, to reward their players.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that's up to them. They can deal with that. But essentially, this is what I would shoot for, right? Like, let's do this kind of format. You guys can decide the terms and conditions. So from there, after this 256 qualifier, the top 32 from there would advance to a finals tournament. So again, this cycle is 5 seasons. We could do that 4 times in a year, every 75 days. And you would still have 2 months at the end of the year to plan for your finals tournament. And another thing that this lends its hand to is it allows the team to maybe schedule promos and reward cards or new ability releases to fall in line with the new season, right? Because we got to keep fresh.
Yeah.
because we can't let the bots, because that's what, again, this is to combat some of the bots, and the more they have to think on new stuff, new abilities, new cards, new rule sets, that's all to the betterment of a human player, to the benefit of a human player. So
yeah.
And then finally, the final would be 128 entries, and you would have your final. It would be a LAN, more than likely, hosted by someone like Weird in the team, and that's where you get to, if some people come from across the world, that's how you get to introduce it. Introduce the community to your top pro players. You get to promote them, links to their Twitter. Some of them have web pages that they do their own like blog posts. That's how the community grows and creates a pro scene. Any questions like on that after sound or anything?
No. I mean, I love the format of it. I love competitive infrastructure. So, to see something like that is really cool. If we could do that in a way where it's just ongoing throughout, a certain period of time, whether that's like sub seasons, then epics,
and then
or whatever. And then you build up something, you build up something big. Yeah.
Yeah. And it gives your team it gives the team a time frame to work around too. And for Nate, like it can give him seasonal ideas too, like maybe this tournament's going to be all based around Scavos and their lore, or Palicores and their lore, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it helps its hand again, because I am cool with a battle pass. I think a battle pass is great for the game, right?
Yeah,
$10. Hey, complete these missions, win 20 matches with Last Stand, do 150 damage with magic, and so on and so forth, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's great, and I can see people right away say, well, that's why we need the other game mode, Darren, so we can do cool stuff like that. But I think you can create that within the ranked mode.
I agree.
Because I think, you'll get your players that go for pro, and then you're going to have all the players that didn't make pro, but they obviously play the game a lot. So that's where I think a lot of the casual play will go, is people will eventually, play their games for the day, do their best, and then just casually just play in that level. And because I don't think there's a lot of my problem, why I would be for a game mode is because, there is no place to go and test new cards. There's absolutely no place to really go test them. You have to get a friend, like you said, and do practice mode. And yeah, it's just not fun, right? Because that's literally the best thing to do when new cards come out, is for an hour or two, just be a degen, right? Let's see what this does when I put it here. Let's see what this does when I do that. Oh, wow, did you guys see that this can grow to like 20 power if you do this? And that's how the game becomes fun, right? There's really no like community sharing when it comes to like the most we get is like sharing our top battles with the Twitter posts. But when you go to Reddit, there's not really like people showing crazy games or anything like that, or what the meta is for Silver 1 or Silver 2 or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think this lends its hand to it. It gives people this like framework to work around. And hey guys, what's the best to get out of like Gold 4? Like that's missing from the community right now.
Yeah. Well, it's not as prevalent as I'd like it to be. I feel like I find it in random pockets, but I agree with you in the sense that it'd be great if that was the center of the discussion rather than just on the fringes.
Yeah. And that's why I also get weary about a new game mode, because we're not doing this mode that great. You know what I mean? Like, don't move on before, you're leaving us with this and you want to start a new thing. Like, now let's work on this real quick. You know what I mean? Like real quick, let's do some tweaks. All right. And then, so yeah, that's my pro thing. It's a yearly cycle, 75-day seasons. And you asked me the first call, you're like, what if someone comes in on that 5th season? They can still qualify. There's going to be,
in those sub seasons. Yeah.
Yeah. There'll be enough sub seasons. There'll be enough qualifiers. There's going to be enough time.
Or they just wait until the next one starts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like if there's tens of thousands of dollars on the line, people are going to be like, hey, you got to wait till the next one. And that's just how it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so there's the point system. I think there is a need for a point system, but I think it's only needed for pro rank. I don't think that the point system is needed for the leagues below. I think that just having the win rate in place for people to get out of the lower tiers is all we need. Or I think it works sufficient. Again, I don't think this is a silver bullet or a fix all. I just think that this format would help us or be beneficial, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so I don't
win
think
rate
that,
would cut out a lot of that. What is it called? The rating inflation that people complain about all the time.
yeah,
Because if it's just based on win rate, then like you could play as many games as you want, but ultimately it's going to come down to like what your percentage is based.
yeah, and really what I see happening is with these more tiers, and this is why I suggested, is that we can calculate it, because if you go into bronze right now at the 1200, 1100 to 1300 level of RP, that's all bots. And why?
Yep.
It's because where they jump into silver, and then you get to the top of silver and more bots, because that's where they jump into gold, right?
Yep.
And they stay at that lower level playing people in the league below them and people in that tier with them. So that's why I would introduce more tiers, is so that tier 5 and 4 of every league would be bots. Because yeah,
anybody
you
poor
make
win
it,
rate.
yeah, you make it that as soon as they get out of tier 5 into tier 4, you can jump into the other league if you want to. You want to go for it. And people are going to say like, no, that's going to make them go up into champ right away. But this helps you, this would help you finally tune the reward system as well. What if tier 5 was nothing but merits, tier 4 was nothing but merits and potions, just stuff that wasn't really valuable, and it's account locked, and you really can't really game anything or win anything from these type of rewards, right? And then when you get into tier 3 and tier 2, yeah, that's when you get some reward cards and you get better prizes and SPS and so on and so forth. And if this were to work, you could really reward the people in the higher tiers a lot. You could literally keep tier 4 and 5 with no monetary value and just keep it to the higher tiers. And people will initially complain, but it takes you 40 games to get out of those 2 tiers, with this system anyways, right? It'll take you 20 to get out of tier 5, and it'll take you 40 to get out of tier 4, and you need to have a 60% win rate. I think that's going to be, I don't have it in front of me, but that's probably about 26, 27 games. Yeah, that's not a lot. And most people do that. And from there, you're going to unlock real rewards. Well, the bots will probably just go to the next one because they can't maintain that high of a win rate in the higher leagues, in the higher tiers. They just can't. Some of them can, but not all.
What about win trading? Don't you think that would get abused even more?
So that is one of the things, but even then, so yeah, I thought about that, and yes, win trading is an issue. I know
the team does a good job behind the scenes of trying to cut that down and like separate, networks of bots, but I feel like some would still slip through.
Yeah, see, that's the thing, that win trading is a thing that happens, but I think with this system, it would need to take a really large bot farm to do it. And then even at the highest levels, right, if it gets into champ and he's playing the top champ players 20 to 30 times a season, he can't maintain that rate, right?
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can understand like one bot farm pushing a handful of bots up to the higher leagues, but even once they get there, they can't win trade amongst those handful of bots, and they would eventually be forced to play real players. And if I'm right that real players are better than bots, those win rates should come down, and as they come down, you should get deranked, right? So let's say that. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's not even the fact that like real players are better than bots. Like it's a lot of the low level bots that end up getting a high like win rate, but then the moment they play a real player, they get beat down by a leveled up deck, right? It's like starter cards versus a gold level deck.
Yeah, because right now people are like, man, you can get 1 BCX cards all the way in diamond in some matches.
Yeah, sure.
And hopefully this would prevent that, right? They would stay in the lower tiers, because from what I saw from bots, man, a good one gets like 55% win rate on the season, right? So technically in this format, they would never get out of bronze 4. At the very most, they would get into tier 4 of any league, right? Silver 4, gold 4, whatever it is. Because another thing that I didn't put in here is that you would get reset, right? So you finish your 40 games in bronze and you want to jump into silver. Well, guess what? You got to start your new 20. You got to do a silver 20. Whether it was the same splinter that you used in bronze, you got to start again. So you got to do 20 in silver tier 5 and another 20 in silver tier 4. And if you jump into gold, guess what? You got to do another 20 in gold 5 and another 20 in gold 4. So I think the whole point of this is just, I think there's ideas that we can put into the game. Again, right? Bot neutral, but you can be pro player. You know, and another thing I didn't list is that I told you last time, you know, one of the cool things, you know, was it a cheat or was it a cool feature that we actually needed was Splinter Tools used to show you the opponent's summoners. So before you started the game, you could see what summoners they had. Is that a cheat or is that a really cool feature, right? Because if I got to see the summoners, you can identify if you're playing against a person or a bot sometimes, right? They don't have, right? Another thing along those lines that I thought about since talking to you is, would it be cool? Because, you know, this whole idea came from is that when you get into higher pro leagues of CCGs, they have something called open deck lists. You come, you register your deck, and everybody can see the cards that you brought and that you're going to play with. And, you know, that way there's some kind of like strategy when they're going up against you, right? They don't feel bamboozled or tricked that you brought in some, like, you know, one trick pony of a card, and you're going to just lean on that to win you games. So maybe we introduce that to Splinterlands. You know, maybe seeing what the opponent has as far as summoners would be a cool thing. Maybe that gives a better win rate to players as far as, you know, for humans go, as far as human win rate goes. And then another thing I thought was, would it be helpful if you knew what the amount the collection was? So if I loaded up a game with After Sound, I saw your summoners and it also said 75% of the collection. Does that help? You know, like, you know what I mean? Or
75% of what?
Like, say we're playing in Modern and you have 75, it'll say like he has these summoners and 75% of the Modern collection.
Oh, Modern collection. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Would that be beneficial to players? You know, like, these are little things that I think we can introduce the game to make rank better. And, you know.
So you're saying more information should just be a part of the game rather than.
Well, it should be discussed. We should definitely have it on the table is what I'm saying. Because, you know, these are things that are natural in CCGs at other levels, right? You know, this isn't like a cheat or a hack. It's just how the game goes in other games. It's, you know, you show us what you have and we can plan around that and so forth, right? So,
yeah.
And again, this is intended to help humans, right? Bot neutral, pro player. So if the player loads up a game and sees that they only have, you know, the rare summoners and they only have 50% of the like collection, or, you know, eventually we'll start to identify bots, right? We'll be like, oh, then these bots only have these summoners. They run 33% of the collection. Like, you know, we'll be able to identify them. And is that and that's more helpful, or is it helpful for a human player? And if so, should we introduce it to the game?
Yeah, well, so there's definitely an argument to be made just in general, because, like, you know, you think about something like Splinter Tools, for example, and the services that they provide. And I think it's like one hive per month. Like they don't charge much, right? But it's like one hive per month or whatever it is. And it's not a lot, but at the same time, you don't want to assume that everybody's going to be able to, you know, where they choose to spend their capital, if they're going to use something like that. So then the question becomes, well, like, should some kind of tool that helps and provide some overlay be allowed? Or, like you said, should this be something that the team just provides so that it's not considered a quote unquote cheat, right? Because if it's available to everybody, then everybody's on the same, it's a level playing field.
Yeah. And again, this would have to come from the team. Yeah. This would be something introduced, put into the game, you know, something released with like Battles 2.0 or something, right? Just some new player interface for the, you know.
Yeah, but that's really all we want, right? Is a level playing field. I mean, when it comes to the whole like bot discussion, at the end of the day, it's like, well, the team is bot neutral, but they want to make sure that bots don't have an advantage over players. And sometimes, well, it's interesting with where you're going, where it's just like, should players have advantages over bots? I don't think any players are going to have an issue with that. And for the most part, you know, a lot of these tools are not going to be like helpful to bots necessarily, but they do provide some value to people.
Yeah, and it also helps, like, when you get into the top tiers, you know, you run into someone like Darkest Night, you're going to think, oh, man, he has all his cards, and then you look, and you're like, wait, he only has these summoners and, like, 80% available? What'd he do? Did he, like, rent to his alt? And, you know, you can start thinking, like, maybe he doesn't have this card or this card available. You know what I mean? It gives you some more layers of strategy and more thinking to it. You know, like, hey, he doesn't have any of his legendary summoners. Did he send him to another account? Good for me, right? Like, he's not going to have this option or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Did you have more that you wanted to go through here?
I did. So just the last one, you know.
Player staking.
Yep, player staking. Why is this good for player staking, or how would it, you know, work in tangent with player staking? So again, everything is based upon win rate, right? Win rate above all else. The system is designed to reward the players with the best win rate. And like I said earlier, it lends its hand to giving people a personality, right? Some people will literally watch a streamer play the same deck or same splinter for hours because it's their favorite splinter. And then they'll go and say, hey, I want to stake on that player because they play my favorite cards, right? I can go into this stream. They'll always be playing cards that I want to see played. I'm going to stake my money on them because guess what? In the end, that player actually has a good win rate as well, right? So it just lends its hand to better decisions, right? As far as like people wanting to stake on, like, who do I stake on? Well, this player has an 89% win rate in, you know, Diamond 2. And maybe that helps us decide too, right? Like, would you rather stake on a 65%er in Champ 3 or a 85%er in Diamond 2? And when you do the math, it's like, whoa, the Diamond 2 guy actually earns you more per season. You know what I mean?
Win rate. Yeah.
Yeah, because he has a higher win rate. So that's where, you know, all that ties into. That's why I like the system, you know, this whole stops the bots, reward distribution, all this stuff, right? And then, you know, just let's see how I wrapped it up, man. You know, if a system similar to the one I propose above is implemented, it should lead to the ease of players' fears that bots are simply pillaging ranked rewards. Bots by design will default themselves to the lower tiers of a league where earnings are non-existent. Right. This should also create a competitive rank scene where 4 qualifiers and the final comprise the competitive scene in Splinterlands. And it also allows for players and the game to showcase the unique playstyle Splinterlands does have. Because that's the other thing, like I said earlier, you know, it's not just an auto battler. There's a lot of decisions that go into it before you put your lineup out.
Yeah. And
I think I mentioned this last time, but what if, you know, another way to increase the gameplay is, what if I saw your summoners, or maybe the community doesn't like that idea, but I have another option to block a splinter, you know? Before we load up our game, I see that, you know, it's going to allow me to play 3 splinters. I don't want you to play life, right? It lets us play fire, life, and water. I don't want you to play life. You only get to pick from fire and water. On your side, you blocked water on me, so I only get to pick from fire and life, and so forth, right?
Yeah.
That's a decision before a lineup, before an auto battler that you can implement. You're right.
So that would be an interesting game mode type. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's just other ideas, right?
Or like rule set type. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you can you can block certain summoners. You can block a certain splinter, kind of like they do in guild brawls, right? And it kind of adds to the element. Like, hey, I can't use Cora this time. They can. Do I block it, or am I just going to lose? Like, do I even try here? So I think there's other elements that we can put into an auto battler that actually makes it a lot more fun and adds to the layers of it.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, and then, you know, hopefully this allows for more casual play among human players, which would allow for more flexibility when designing a battle pass with achievements. This would create plateaus within the rank leaderboard and make it more desirable than creating a... And let's see. So I think this is where I was trying to tone it down about sandbox mode, man, because I didn't want to come off salty, because, you know, I know they're going to do it, and I know it's just my fear because I've seen it with another game. Well, I saw CCG. All the community wanted was a mobile version. All they wanted was a mobile version. The mobile version came at a cost of, like, it couldn't fit all on the screen, right? From the PC version to the mobile version, they couldn't fit on the screen. They had to take elements out, and it ended up changing the whole gameplay. And that was the end of it. Gotcha. People just left, you know, a small player base stayed, and, you know, that was like the end of it. No one really came back. That was the death of the game right there. And it was exactly what the people wanted, was a mobile version that killed it, you know? So when I thought, that's why I was scared, you know, I just got to get over my fears that this won't happen again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, to your earlier point, like I don't think it's guaranteed to happen. I mean, I think that this is an idea that we've thrown around, but when I say we, it's like me, Darkest and Weirdbeard. Like
Yeah, but that yeah,
I don't
but
know if this
then
conversation's been being had at the higher levels. So
well, yeah, and then you see that's why I said Nate over here saying new game modes, new game modes. That's the one I was like, oh man, it's really
well,
going to happen. You know, like they're going
yeah,
to
yeah.
really do something like this. Well, first of all, Weirdbeard said he is doing one, right? Like he announced that in Math Chat that he has been working one for the past 3 months, right?
Well, so he's working on a bunch of different game modes, from what I understand. I mean the sandbox thing. Here's what it comes down to, right? At the end of the day, like, is the sandbox thing going to be a revenue generator, right? So I don't think so, not like directly, and so therefore I don't just think that that would be a place where they would prioritize spending time, right? It'd be better for them to spend, in my opinion, it'd be better for them to spend like on game modes that would have an appeal for the current player base, but also bring in new players, and provide a way for people to invest further into the ecosystem.
Gotcha. I don't know. It still scares me. I just don't. I can't picture it, and I think that's what scares me. You know what I mean? Is I can't picture it. Like I don't know what game mode they're trying to bring in, and I just can't picture it. You know, will it use the NFTs that we own? Will they just unlock the cards for us? Like I'm just
Yeah, well, that so when we came up with that idea, it wasn't like create a sandbox mode all the time. I wanted it to be very like time limited. So it's not just, it's you turn it into an event, turn it into an event, I should say. And essentially like, you know, 2 hours, 3 hours every month, once a month, people can come in, you invite your friends, the ones who are wary about crypto games and card games in general, and
yeah
just be like, hey, come check this game out. They're having, a night where you can play for free. Essentially, you just come in, you get access to all the cards, you get to see what the game mode is like. Everybody who's in the game is streaming, right? And it's like you can go and just check it out. It's like a big like Splinterlands festival, digital festival, where you can just come in and play the game, learn the meta, and have fun with it for a couple of hours. It's just for that night. And then, if you could bring some people in from that, then maybe they go in, start trying out bronze. Maybe you push them over to Nifty to rent out a deck.
yeah
You know what I mean? So again, it would be a slow grind. I don't think you're going to get like hundreds of thousands of people to come in on like the first night, but it's like it just creates a place for you to bring newer players and point them to and kind of handhold them in kind of like a live format, because if everybody's streaming, you're doing it live with friends, people that either in the same place or digitally. I just feel like there's an opportunity there, but again, how big is that opportunity? I don't even know. It's just something that would be nice to have.
Yeah, no, I get you. I get you. I do. I get you. I really do get you guys. It's just I think it's just the fear from that last game. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
I've seen a team totally give into the wants of the community, and then when it happened, it totally backfired, and that's wrong. I think that I still live with that fear, and I think that's really my problem. You know what I mean?
To your point, something that irks me a little bit about all this like player proposals and DAO voting and all that is like sometimes I feel like the community just shoots itself in the foot. Right? It's like we want all these things, and then like when it's there, they'll vote against it, or they'll vote against their best interests. And so it's just been odd to see that happen time and time again, like where they want something, the team will present a way to go for it, and then everybody just focuses on the negative. So
yeah, exactly. Like the new listing, right? A year ago, that's all the community wanted.
Oh yeah,
that's all they were begging for. Get us a listing, huge listing, top 5 listing. Now it's available, and nobody wants it. They shot it down.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like everybody wanted it when Splinterlands was going to pay for it, but now nobody wants to vote it out of the DAO, right?
The DAO.
So, but it's like to pay the listing fee, it's got to come from somewhere. And if the team isn't going to cover it probably for some legal and financial reasons, right? Then let it come from the DAO. So
yeah,
cool, man. You got any final thoughts here, and then we can wrap up?
No, just that, all in all, if we can do a review again, ECR, can we simply have a toggle switch? I think that would ease a lot of players, tension about like being able to play when they want, right? I think that should be asked, of Matt at the very least, like, hey, can we have this? Because I truly believe this is the biggest change that could like really help the game.
Yeah.
Is just let me play when I want. And then, just the rank revamp. I think these changes are, again, not a silver bullet to fix all our problems. I don't think this is perfect. I don't think this is the system, that will exactly get implemented if it does. But I do think it's a good framework to begin with, right? Like, I think adding more layers into rank, trying to filter out bots and human players, trying to, again, be pro player and give them the best opportunity to beat these bots is what we should be focusing on. And then for the people that do really well at the game, we should have a platform for them, so they can shine and really get their name out there and start to build a brand for themselves. With this pro league and this finals tournament, I think it'd be great. I think the team, with a minimum could put up like maybe 50,000 for the first year to get something off the ground and like tournament prizes. I don't know if that's a lot for them to do. I don't know if that's a little for them to do, but I think that would be like a good starting point. And then finally, just my cautionary tale. Like I said, I think it's more of just myself being fearful from the last game that I was really into, failing on this concept of introducing new things to the game. And then again, I'm not really, like I said, I'm really not against it. I just think that I don't want to see more game modes that are CCGs. I just don't want to have more card games. If it's like Slay the Spire or TFT, auto chess, that's cool. That's really cool, to use your NFTs like that in multiple game modes. But just using cards as the same card, like, hey, so we can play a Uno version with your cards. I don't know if that would work well. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I would definitely want it to be within theme and not just, something that's ripped off from somewhere. But I mean, look, I agree where you're coming from. I think that it's good to consider everything. So that's why when we had our initial conversation, I was just like, never really thought about that. So I appreciate you bringing this on and just presenting it, because it is good to consider all of the obviously positive, but also negative outcomes or possibilities when implementing something as big as a sandbox or as a game mode or whatever the case might be in the future.
Right. And again, it's not the negatives. It's time, right? That's resources and time that we will spend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 2 months of them doing a whole game mode is them of 2 months not doing, focusing on rank, which is our bread and butter at this point. Yeah. You know what I mean? That is what brought us here. That's why we're here. That's what brought us here. Well, so that's why I just think we need more focus,
Regardless, new game modes or not, I'm very much in alignment that we need an update to ranked. I like the way that you set yours out, and as you said, it may not be perfect, but you've thought it through very thoroughly in the sense of like, well, how do you deal with certain elements of like bots? Is there a place for bots, and how do you make it pro-human and bot neutral? So I would love to see stuff that has an ongoing kind of nature to it, rather than like every 15 days we just reset and we start the grind over again. It's like, I can understand for players if it gets very repetitive after a while. I mean, I'm actually shocked that I still play this game like pretty much every day.
Honestly, when I said it, almost 2 years, and I play this game still a lot. Like, the game has that quality that people look for.
Yeah, it's just I don't like. I've never played a game that long and been like that quote unquote addicted. But part of it is I'm not just addicted to the game. I'm addicted to the meta around the game and the game economy, really. Right. So I'm obsessed with everything that's happening there. And the game is just a nice little kind of dopamine hit that you get to do. And it takes anywhere from like 2 to 5 minutes. And you can always find 2 to 5 minutes to like jump into a game and play a battle. So I would just love for there to be some more long standing or long range kind of goals with it. And, something like this, where you have a pro league that builds up quarterly, builds up yearly, and then you have a champion, right? Like, that's what I want to see, like a champion. Who is going to be the champion of 2023? Because like, I say this on stream all the time, but it's just like the champion of 2022 for me is D-Tough stuff, right? He's the one who won at Splinterfest. So, I would love to see more competitions like that. They can be in person, but until we get more in-person style events, they can also be digital. And if the team can set it up in a way where ranked makes more sense, you know what I mean? And set this up, that'd be really cool.
Yeah. And then another thing that I would, just real quick, I don't like the narrative that has surrounded the like bronze and silver rank. Like, oh, bronze isn't as good as diamond, or you don't, I don't like that narrative, right? If you spend as much time playing bronze as you do diamond, it's still the same effort that you put into it, trying to learn the
Sure.
meta and all this stuff. So I just think, it allows for your bronze and silver people to get some, a little love here and there. And as far as rewards go, again, I think this system, I don't really see why. I can understand why. As I say it, I clearly understand why, but I don't feel like there should be that big of a discrepancy in your earnings if you're the top pro player in bronze and you're the top pro player in diamond. I understand why people are going to be like, no, bro, there clearly has to be a huge difference.
Interesting.
But
yeah,
I don't think there should be that big of a difference, right? Like, I think your pro player in diamond should get maybe like 20,000 and the guy in bronze should get like a $10,000 prize. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
like,
I mean, to your point, like the meta is unique in each league. Sure, it gets a little bit more complex at the higher leagues, but I think it's actually funny that somebody who like plays up in gold or diamond like myself, when I go to bronze, I get my butt kicked, right? Because it's just like, well, it's a completely different meta. It's simplified in certain ways, but the challenge actually in bronze is the fact that it's much more accessible. It's not necessarily that it's harder, or harder in that sense, but it's like there's just way more people that can buy bronze level cards and bronze level decks. So you're competing against a larger pool of competitors.
Yeah. And the meta is way more fleshed out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's, in bronze and silver, people know exactly what's going to win. And I feel like in diamond, in champ, you can still like, maybe this will work and you can put it out there and hey, you might get the win with it, a little bit easier than you would in the lower tiers. So yeah, but that's another thing that I would like, is that people in the lower tiers get their love as well, because I think they put in just as much effort as the people in the higher leagues.
Yeah, no, I totally agree and would love to see that.
Yeah, and then at the end of the year, if they want to, they could put like their own little tournament, 1,000 each, and they can do an open and see who's the best of the best or something like that,
Yeah.
Like after the final, like, hey, I'll put 1,000, everyone put in 1,000, and we'll see who's the best of the best, and like best out of 3, and you got to put me down in bronze 2 times or something like that,
Yeah.
As far as competition goes, I think there's so much to do with Splinterlands, and it's just not touched at all. Totally an untapped resource to make this game way more enjoyable for the team and for the community. Because another thing that kind of bugs me is that people talk about the game and marketing like they're trying to sell it to like 6-year-olds sometimes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're trying to market a game to a bunch of kids or like even 16-year-olds, but our target market has to be 18 and above.
I mean, honestly, it's got to be people that can afford to buy the cards, right?
Yeah, so, and they have to be first. They have to be the legal age.
Yeah,
and but there's a lot of elements that I think that we're not pushing that like poker does and all this other cool stuff that
Mm-hmm.
Man, I wish we could just tap into because I think the game is awesome. I really do. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think the gameplay was legit.
Yeah, no, indeed. Cool, man. Well, this was a lot of fun. I hope we can have further chats in the future once we get a little bit more clarity on stuff that's coming down the pipeline. But something else that you just mentioned, I know we talked about in our private chat too, is hopefully we'll get more of these competitive aspects, and I know that's something that I've been looking into further. So you and I can continue that conversation on how we bring that into the mix, because. And this is not a shot at Weirdbit at all. I know that he's been pushing for this quite a bit, and it seems like his focus has shifted now to getting tournaments and guilds and brawls kind of leveled up. So I would love to see the esports side really take off, and maybe that is something that the community should be working on and focusing on.
Yeah, because I mean, honestly, that would bring in a lot more eyes, right? Because who are we trying to pull in? Other card players, right? That's a prime market right there. Is other CCG players,
Yeah.
And I don't see them bringing in that. Like there's teams like Evil Geniuses that automatically will put a player in there just to like write blogs for them. You know what I mean? To get the feel for the game and write blogs and just to have that commentary about that community from like a organization's standpoint.
Yeah,
we don't have that. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot lacking.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a big deal. I just think it's stuff that we need to focus and.
Well, there's, I mean, maybe I wouldn't say lacking, but it's just, there's so much opportunity, right? There's so much
opportunity.
Like there's just somebody could fill that void, or people could fill that void if it's not being filled yet. And you never know what kind of eyes you can get on it if you do it and if you do it well. So
true.
cool, man.
Yeah, because again, like we talked about last time with yours, I think a creator like you can easily have a tournament run weekly or monthly. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think you could do it daily, but that would take a lot of effort. You know what I mean?
Well, that'd be fun. Yeah, we'll talk about that more, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
it's something I'm looking into. But Darren, I really appreciate the time. I know I asked you beforehand about if you had anything you want to push, but if people did want to get in touch with you, and feel free to say no to this, but are you open to that? And where could they get in touch?
I mean, if they really wanted to, I want to be a content creator, but I just don't have the time. So I did go and create the handle on Twitter, Hive Dgen.
Hive Dgen?
Yeah, all together, no underscore, no nothing, just Hive Dgen.
Okay.
That's me on Twitter. You can at me there or follow me there. And then on Discord, I go by my IGN, Deerambo.
Deerambo. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And if anybody,
my IGN and Discord.
Yeah, and if anybody wants me to connect, just let me know and I can put you guys in touch. And I'll vet them for you, make sure they're not some of the crazies.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. I like to talk about it, you know. Even here,
Yeah.
I started to ramble. It's hard to like keep my thoughts in together because I just think of all, like you said, the possibilities, right? The opportunities and possibilities.
No,
it's even hard for me to talk about one thing because I'm already thinking about something else
about the next stuff. Yeah. No. I mean, there's a lot of people in this community that are just passionate about wanting to see this game succeed in all different facets, right? Not just like number go up, tokens go up. It's just there's so much potential with it. Like so, you know, I'm here for more discussion.
Yeah, again, let's focus on what we do good, and we're the #1 CCG in Web3. Does anyone dispute that? You know, I mean, I would say it's Gods Unchained, us, and like a far third is like maybe Skyweaver or someone like that. So what are we? We're the #1 game right now in Web3. You know, we're doing great stuff there.
Yeah,
you know, we're expanding. We got JLS coming out. We got a tower defense. So I just think, I don't know. I think the community just stop being so negative. I know we've been in the bear for like a long time. It's the longest bear, you know. So I understand all this saltiness, but at the same time, we have a lot of good things that we could share with people, and I think we're not doing that right now.
We have a lot of good things that we can build on, and hopefully a lot of good things that are just around the corner.
Yeah.
So awesome, Darren. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man. This was fun as always, and hopefully we'll come together for a round 2 at some point.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate it again, After Sound. I hope I kept it as together as I could, man. I have 0 people to talk to, and you're one of the few that actually said, hey, let's have conversations about it. So I appreciate it.
You know me, man. I'm obsessed. So anybody that wants to talk about the game, I'm always down. So I appreciate you reaching out.
Sounds good, After Sound. Appreciate it.
All right.